Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Break the Rules coming at you live. I'm Lev Polyakov, Lev Po on X, and we are here today with none other than Drutang, the man who 2 years ago predicted what was going to be going down with Donald Trump and Elon Musk today. And we are doing this on X Spaces as well as on YouTube. So, all the people who are on X Spaces right now, be sure to go into YouTube, smash that subscribe button, smash that like button, click the bell. The bell is extremely important for the growth of this thing. And we are just going to get started right now with Drew Tang, breaking it all down for all the people who have not really been paying attention to the things that you were putting out there. Let people know about what exactly has been going on, and also let people know a little bit about yourself for those who don't know who the great Drew Tang is.
Perfect. Yeah, so first of all, thanks for having me on. It's been a crazy couple of days here with what's been going on. And yeah, in general, I'm basically just an online conspiracy theorist. I wrote a book in 2019. Primarily, my content is threads on Twitter. And I've been really focusing, my specialty is kind of in not only history and like lesser known history and kind of connecting dots that, people don't usually do in terms of power structures um, and stuff like that. But also, what I specialize in is predicting future events by basically just pattern recognition, figuring out how the ruling class uses media and propaganda in fictional media uh, to program the masses to accept certain concepts and prepare them for certain events. And basically, by identifying certain authors, media entities, um, and mediums that they like to use, I found certain patterns, certain narratives that seem to perfectly describe the timeline that we're on. And by using those methods, I was able to say, and you know, it's 2 years ago is the tweet that I'm pointing to in terms of predicting that Elon and Trump would collaborate and then fight each other in a civil war um, type way, which took a lot of people by surprise. I've heard like multiple times of people on YouTube when describing the little spat that happened yesterday with Elon, basically saying, Trump, you're on the Epstein list, you're a pedophile, and like really going as hard as possible against him. People are like, oh, who could have seen this coming? And yeah, it was me. But it's basically the reason I was able to say that 2 years ago, and I was actually saying it before that. But I just can't hunt down the tweets because I was basically just like quote tweeting stuff with the movie poster of Marvel Civil War, a Captain America Civil War. So I can't really find the tweets, but I think it was pretty significantly before 2023, June of 2023 as well. But that's when I released the tweet that I've been using as a receipt to show the prediction. But yeah, that's what we're primarily going to talk about today. And yeah, is there anywhere where you want any questions or starting point you want me to go for here, Lev?
So, today I noticed that there's been a lowering of the tension compared to yesterday. Musk has been a little bit more careful, but Trump, I wouldn't say Trump has been as gracious, relatively speaking, as Musk has been. He's talking about how, why would I talk to this guy? He's like drug addled and all that stuff. So, what do you think is going on? Do you think like this is a lull and we're going to be, if you have another prediction, do you think that this lull is just temporary and things are going to get heated up once again between these two?
Yeah, I don't think it's done at all. Trump basically, people were talking about having a phone call between Trump and Musk today, and Trump basically like shut him down, didn't take the phone call. Um, and yeah, in general, I think it's going to continue to get behind, exactly what this event, why it was so important that I, was tweeting about it 2 years ago, is what this represents essentially is Musk is a new type of leader that we haven't seen before in America to some degree. because he cannot run for president. He wasn't born in the United States. And two, we've had some pretty powerful oligarchs and monopoly holders in the past, Rockefellers, Carnegies, Morgans, and banking or oil or something like that. But we've never quite had someone like Elon Musk, who essentially controls the electric car industry, Starlink, satellite internet that provides internet to so many places in the world that didn't have any options for internet before.
He's the
Um,
richest man in the world, isn't he?
yeah, richest man in the world. And of course he effectively controls NASA now. So all of these things that you think in terms of infrastructure used to be handled by the government to some degree.
Hmm.
Um, we've never had a focus of power quite like this. And of course X, he controls essentially the social media that was used to win the 2016 election, and I think effectively also helped Trump win 2024 as well. Um,
But the guy himself,
yeah.
just to be clear about this, the way that he moves around, and sure you could blame the ketamine, but he really symbolizes to me the entry point into a kind of idiocracy. Where if I were to compare him with a lot of these robber barons you were talking about, like the Morgans and the Rockefellers, those people built institutions we would look at today and say, oh my God, this is the transcendence of humanity, all these beautiful columns and, these statues, the statue of Hermes, in Manhattan, in the what's wrong with me right now, in the train station, the train station I'm talking about, right? It was the one that was built by Vanderbilt, Cornelius
What,
Vanderbilt.
in New York, Grand Central
Yes,
Station?
Grand Central Station. See, I'm a New Yorker and I forgot
Oh.
Central Station. How dare I? But yeah, Grand Central Station, there is a statue of, with the caduceus Mercury. And this is somebody who is so integral to our, collective unconscious and all of that. Yet you have somebody like Elon Musk, who the biggest thing he would talk about is like Kekius Maximus. And sure, you could say like that's the Egyptian god Kek and all that,
Hmm.
god of destruction. But in terms of quality, it sucks. It
Well,
sucks in
yeah.
comparison to all the great things that these robber barons, like him or not, that they gave to us. Do you see something significant about that too? That this is who we got stuck with now?
Well, yeah, you could say the same thing about Trump, and the reason that is because
Hmm.
they're both cartoon superheroes. They're literally from the pages of comics. That they are Trump. His whole life was literally, at least Musk, was in charge of building some companies that have actual real world products and stuff. Trump literally spent his entire life playing the media and putting his name on buildings. That was it. And going
Hmm.
bankrupt and basically just gaining as much attention as possible. And then, getting in with Roy Cohn, and then getting into like the deep state blackmail rings, Epstein,
Oh yeah.
etc. And then basically leverage that and his branding into, becoming president. But yeah, I think, idiocracy is pretty relevant. And
And for those who don't know,
yeah.
by the way, because there are people watching this and probably have never seen the movie Idiocracy, it's about what happens when the only people who are born are the ones who get born by the majority of stupid people, where all the smart people stop having kids because, they're too busy with their careers. And all of a sudden, you got skyscrapers that are falling down. You got trash everywhere. Starbucks turns into like a sex cafe. So, anyway, like this is the kind of and the most famous movie out in theaters is Ow My Balls, where guys just get hit in the balls over the time, or Ass the movie. Like that's considered to be the high art of the day. So you think that this is intentional as opposed to just humanity resting on its laurels, not really giving a crap about making something of itself anymore? Or a bit of both?
Yeah, yeah, no, I think this is it's a multi-generational setup. The civilizations have always been ruled by the authority of the gods in their mythology. So, for instance, the pharaohs of Egypt were seen as Horus in life and Osiris when they were dead, and they ruled by their authority. The popes ruled by the authority of Jesus. They're the vicar of Christ. Christ's representation on earth. Kings rule by divine right. again, of God, representing God on earth. So what they're setting up here, and this is the whole theme of this connection, obviously, to summarize, of course, bringing up Marvel Civil War, Marvel Captain America Civil War, and saying what we're experiencing in the event of yesterday is directly parallel to it. It is it. The reason I say that is because Marvel itself was, it's basically a multi-generational propaganda campaign to program the population to accept the fall of the republic and democracy and accept the rise of technocracy. And it's not just Marvel, it's all the leagues of superheroes, the Justice League, Watchmen, The Boys are the most recent, The Boys HBO show, I think it is the most recent example. And the idea is to get people to accept the idea of being ruled and having all of our major industries being controlled by these super wealthy technocrats. And ultimately, it's a technocracy, which Elon Musk's grandfather was arrested during World War II in Canada for being the leader of the technocracy party. And the Canadian government rightly thought that he was a threat to the government, so they arrested him. And after that, after the war, his family moved from Canada to South Africa, which is why Musk is from South Africa. That's why he's an African American. But so that's essentially what's being set up. Is this is a propaganda campaign? Stan Lee, the well-known kind of patriarch of the Marvel universe, he was in all the movies. He dies right before he could be in Endgame, or he might be in Endgame and it came out after he died. I forget, but regardless, he was one of 9 people paid as a playwright during World War II. He was in the army, but he was basically just a army propagandist, creating propaganda for the army. Captain America, of course, was used to sell war bonds, and the Captain America comics themselves were specifically used to galvanize the American public against Hitler and to demonize the Nazis and to get support for the war. And yeah, so they basically took that, and that was like 2 generations ago. Then they continue to update the same cinematic universe over and over again, new comics, new TV shows for each generation for the last, since World War II. Every generation has had their own version of these same archetypes, and it's just programmed into the subconscious of the nation. And then you have Musk, who was literally in Iron Man 2. Robert Downey Jr. said he based the way he plays Tony Stark off of the mannerisms of Elon Musk. And people say these things subconsciously without even knowing this is intentional. But so people were already making memes about Marvel Civil War between Musk and Trump yesterday without knowing anything about what I talk about. And that's how effective this is because it is very intentional programming. And I guess to get to the whole point of why it's important enough to predict is, like I was saying before, Musk represents something different than traditionally we've had with leaders in the United States. Because he can't become president, but he used to be more popular than Trump or Biden before he threw his hat behind Trump. And I'm sure if he divorces himself from Trump, he'll once again become more popular. You could see it yesterday. The Democrats started to like him a lot more after he said Trump was on the Epstein list. And he immediately, as soon as he said that, his next tweet after the Epstein list tweet about Trump was, let's start a new party that represents the 80% in the middle of the United States. So what Musk is doing is he can't be president, but he's a kingmaker now that could basically, the next president, I think, is going to be picked by Musk, essentially. Making Trump the last president in a way.
Well, just like that book, right? The Last President?
Yes, exactly.
Can you tell the people about that, just for those who don't know?
So there's 2 books written by Ingersoll Lockwood at the turn of the 19th into the 20th century. And the titles of the books, the first one was Baron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey, and the second one was The Last President. And they both have a bunch of characters. There's the Don, there's Pence, there's you
And
know,
it takes place around where Trump's tower is, doesn't
yeah,
it?
the president lives on Fifth Avenue in New York, where Trump Tower is in The Last President. Um,
Oh man, that
so
is ridiculous.
yeah, yeah. So that's an example. And Ingersoll Lockwood himself was like in these like weird occultist groups. He himself had like direct correspondence with the presidents of the time, and there is some level of occult connections there, and connections directly to power. So you can't put a direct line on why exactly he would write those books, but it is seemingly a narrative they've had in mind for a long time. um, Captain America, itself, being the Trumpian archetype. The theme of that movie, Marvel Civil War, Captain America Civil War, is that Captain America doesn't want to give up sovereignty. He doesn't want to give up the sovereignty of America and of himself, basically, of the Avengers, to the United Nations, actually, in the movie. And Iron Man, on the other side, being a globalist, aka Musk, where he can't be president, so he's a globalist in many ways. It's basically, the movie is a fight between nationalism and globalism, and that's essentially what we're seeing with the Trump. That's what Trump versus Musk represents. As similar as they are, like they're aligned, just like Iron Man and Captain America, they have similar enemies: Thanos, Bill Gates, depopulation campaign. Um, they have similar enemies, but they are different. They are very different in their motivations and morals, etc. And that's what Trump represents, and Captain America in the movie represents, the last days of the American Empire. Because in the movie series, it does basically end up being the world's basically run by these superheroes because they're so much more powerful than governments. And we're starting to see that with Musk directly influencing the Ukraine war, for instance, where I believe he refused to give the Ukrainians Starlink access in Crimea or something like that. This was a
Not
couple of
only
years
that,
back.
but he's been laughing around with Medvedev, who has for those who don't know, Medvedev, he was the former president of Russia. Even though when he was president, Putin was still de facto leader at the time. Medvedev has been talking about how Russia's going to go beyond just Ukraine, how it's going to be taking the Baltics, and how uh, there is this general sense of there's this general sense of disgust towards the Western way of life. And Musk seems to be in completely good terms with this guy. Not only that, but Musk's mother, May Musk, was attending this event in Abu Dhabi, this women in leadership event. And this event was sponsored by the wives of a lot of these Russian oligarchs. And this was happening quite recently. So, as far as
Uh,
how these people
oh,
are,
hold on a
what's
sec.
going
Sorry,
on? No
I got
problem at
a
all. Guys, if you
computer
are
just
enjoying
rolled
this
in.
program right now, make sure to smash that like button, smash that subscribe button. Aw, that's so adorable. Yes, guys, smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, click the bell, and also patreon.com/break the rules. Become a patron today, and you will not regret it. One of the things that's going to be coming out very soon, I'm editing it right now, is the program that we had with Uber Boyo and Gnostic Informant. This was in BTR NYC. It was in the New York City studio, and that's going to be coming out just in a few days. I'm almost done with the editing there. And right after that, we're going to have Styx Hexenhammer 666, who also made an appearance in New York City, and that's going to be coming out right afterwards. And that was another fantastic program. It was just me and Styx sitting and talking about all kinds of things, similar to the kind of things we're discussing today. And if you guys want to actually be there in the New York City studio and watch us live as audience, become a patron today, patreon.com/break the rules. Become a $20 patron. And if you happen to be around the New York City area, you are going to be invited, just like the people who were invited these last times with Styx and with Neil and Uber Boyo. We have a recording, then we go to the after party, And there's also a roof. I got a rooftop. And by the way, Drew, you are invited to the rooftop as well next time whenever you're going to be in New York City. And all the people who want to see Drutang in New York City, eventually, cross my fingers when that happens, become a patron, patreon.com/break the rules. And once again, a reminder to all the people who are watching this right now in the X space, go to the YouTube link in the Jumbotron. You're going to see our faces. Need those super chats if you have any questions for Drew about the things that he's talking about right now. So anyway, getting back to what I was saying earlier. Now, I don't want to be one of those Trump, Russia kind of things, because I think a lot of that has been, beating a dead horse. But I would say that there are definitely like Russian mafia connections as far as Trump goes. A lot of the people, and in fact, like a lot of the companies that were putting up money to Trump in the, I think, mid-90s, when his businesses were starting to falter, when he was in debt, a lot of those did come from Russian oligarchs. So I see both of them potentially being compromised by this power, which I think it's a complete nonsensical idea that, oh, these are like the based trads that want to preserve, European culture. That's bullshit. Because a lot of these people, they've already been Islamized to a great extent. Like if you look at Moscow, Moscow's got the biggest mosque in the world. And this is another thing that I was talking about with Giorgiani, and I'm curious what your, Jason Giorgiani, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. Jason, brilliant philosopher, Iranian philosopher, he sees Islam as being one of the best control systems for the future, where if we are going to have like some kind of a, traditional-ish society of people that are going to be, just following the leader, it's a good way of organizing people. It's a good way of keeping people in line. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, where exactly you would see Islam in relation to what's going on right now. But it seems like this is also a very big part of globalism. Because again, with the migrations that have been going on into Europe, with a lot of these Muslim quote unquote refugees that have been settling in there, starting their own communities up, I don't think that it's just an accident that something like that's been going on. So
Yeah,
any thoughts
yep.
there?
I think it's a kind of a Gates of Toledo type situation. Are you familiar with that
I
era of
am
history?
familiar, but like always, I say that when it comes to people who tend to be the most individuated, which I believe the Jewish people on the whole are, where you get people who are both fighting on the side of good and fighting on the side of evil, they're extremely competent. Of course, you're going to have Jewish people who are going to be extremely competent doing bad things, as well as people who are not Jewish doing bad things. So again, I know that the whole Gates of Toledo things tends to elicit certain reactions in a lot of people today, but I think that that's falling for a false paradigm. Because if they weren't there, there would be Gentiles who would be right in line doing exactly the same thing, just like the WASPs are doing today, who want to bring all the refugees in. I don't really see that big of a difference between those two.
Yeah, no, I mean they definitely go along with it, but I mean you can't deny that there's some parallels between the Gates of Toledo situation and today. I mean, we're letting people in regardless of who's orchestrating it. We're letting in people who are opposed to the Western Christian way of life, and it's sowing discord, and ultimately it's the divide and conquer tactic where you put together people of different cultures, and then you let them fight each other, and then they don't have any time to seek out government reforms and stuff like that, which is why they would draw lines in colonial times. The colonial nations would draw lines and include cultures in the same country and cut off other groups, etc., etc. So that, in terms of immigration, that's definitely happening. And I mean, the UK and Europe in general is, I really have zero hope for them whatsoever. Even when they seem to put in somebody that is opposed, like that the Italian lady, whatever. I don't think she's actually made any headway on stopping the massive, immigration from the Muslim and African continent. And
Big
yeah,
Ye
no,
says over here, by the way, thanks to Protestant Christianity. So you got to
Yeah.
admit that there were a
Yeah.
lot of these, especially the wives of a lot of these Protestant pillars of the community, who was like,
Mhm.
oh, the poor migrants, we have to bring them in. So again,
Yeah.
when it comes to a lot of this
Christians.
stuff,
Yeah.
yeah, you could throw in the Gates of Toledo. I could throw in the French Revolution, where you got a bunch of French intellectuals that empowered the peasantry in order to murder
Wait
priests.
a second. Wait a second. Wait a second. Wait a second. The French Revolution, I think, also might have some Jewish influence as well. But no, I'm not
Who?
saying that.
Who specifically, though?
I'm not saying the Christians are like,
No, but
they
which of
have
the French
they have
intellectuals?
suicidal empathy. They have suicidal empathy.
No, they definitely do. But
And
which French intellectuals are crypto Jews? If we're talking about like the intellectuals who fomented the ideas of the French Revolution, like I don't know, like the names are disappearing from my head right now. Rousseau, take Rousseau, the noble savage. How many people today are echoing the ideals of the noble savage when they think about all of these, beautiful doctors and scientists that are, on a boat heading into Italy? You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
that's the noble
Hmm.
savage ideal, which Rousseau touted. Rousseau was not Jewish. So again, it's like if we're talking about certain crypto banker elites, whatever, they're already on so high of a level then in comparison to what we're talking about with these intellectuals that it's like talking about space aliens at that point. So again, I don't want to create this kind of needless dialectic where, like you were saying before, if there is this need to break people up into these different categories, I
Hmm.
feel like the spirit of the times is going on right now. And obviously, people like Dave Portnoy do not help by any means. But this is also one of those spirit of the times things that I think needlessly starts dividing people. While you're absolutely right that there is a focus that needs to occur when it comes to who are pulling the strings. But then we got to be very sober about that. So all I'm saying is that when you're going to have people who are very effective at doing things, they can do things that are good, they can do things that are bad. But if they were not, they in the parentheses,
Hmm.
if they
Yeah.
were not around, there would definitely be people that would fill their place, at the ready. So anyway,
Yeah.
that's
Hundred
just
percent.
my spiel over there.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
back to what we were talking about, though, with what exactly is going on with Musk and Trump, I do want to push back just a slight bit and ask if they were like hands off and say, guys, we're not going to do anything. We're not going to be constructing any kind of scheme here.
Hmm.
Let the people just naturally fall into this state of being full of creature comforts and not really wanting anything, innovative to happen in society.
Hmm.
Would not the same thing be occurring? Because if people in the West have all these creature comforts, why would we not enslave ourselves from our own sense of, wanting security in exchange for liberty? Like, do we even need an elite in order to do that?
There is certain, there are certain, like, foregone conclusions as far as technological advancement. Um, there's, as we create more technology, we get more convenience. There's certain things that are inevitable in that way that, they doesn't necessarily need to be a top-down control type scheme. Like, uh, yeah, so I guess, so you're saying if there wasn't an orchestrated plot to make people more comfortable with technocracy, would it
Yeah, would they
happen
just accept
anyways?
it anyway? Like just knowing how people are,
Hmm.
reading like Gustave Le Bon's The Crowd, a book that was very fundamental to people like,
Hmm.
Mussolini and Hitler and, all those cats. Like you really get the idea of how susceptible people are to propaganda.
Hmm.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to try that hard and you have to make things in advance. And I'm not saying that you're wrong about these predictions, but it
Hmm.
almost seems like people long to be controlled. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Like
It's more
where do
of
you?
a
Yeah,
it's more of just guiding and making a transition easier more than anything else. It's not like, these, like I was referring to earlier, it's kind of like nothing's ever really changed. There's been some outside, the aesthetics of it have changed, but we're still being essentially ruled. If my assertion is that people like Trump and Elon because they remind them of these, oligarch technocrat superheroes that they've seen in the movies, the Superman archetype, Musk being Batman and Dr. Manhattan and Iron Man. Um, it's just kind of what's always happened, like I was saying, all the mythology, all the leaders have always ruled by the mythology of the people. So, the kings, oh yeah, I've got the divine right from Jesus. Jesus gave me the divine right. And, the pharaohs, hey, I'm Horus, I'm Ra, I'm Osiris. So I think humans basically just always have a ruling class, and then democracy, yeah, we kind of supposedly have an influence, but like 2004 election, you got to pick between John Kerry or George Bush. It's like, which Skull and Bones member do you guys want? We were gonna, literally swear an oath that they're brothers underneath the skin, and like, I doubt they would make any actual difference, whichever one had gotten in. So who it's this transition. It's like when I say that to people, I'm like, oh, they're moving to technocracy from democratic republic. People are like, well, yeah, the democratic republic also just doesn't work, and they're right. It's a shitty system too. It's also like super inefficient. And maybe a technocracy, ultimately led by AI, which is, that was another prediction. Basically, once I started looking at Musk in 2022, and seeing that his grandfather was a part of this technocracy party, and looking into his ideas in AI and stuff like that, and some of the other fictional narratives that he was like asserting himself into, like for instance, making his profile picture the cover of the video game Deus Ex, Deus Ex from
Great
2000.
game.
Yeah, I mean, I've never played it, but I've watched so much during my research. Watched so many of the screenplay and the
Yeah.
dialogue, and the themes are so like poignant, and like even they're they have gray aliens in the game that they're like, oh yeah, these actually we have aliens, but they're actually not aliens. They're just biological entities that were biologically engineered by the government in order to distract people. Um, and I think ultimately, I think that's also what's going to play out. But in that video game, there's multiple endings that you get to pick essentially by your decisions in the game, from what I understand. And one of them is that you merge with this omnipotent AI and rule society benevolently by merging with AI. So obviously Musk shoehorns himself into the 2024 election, gets his candidate elected, gets into the, essentially, I think he got an office in the White House, and started plugging in AI, taking, harvesting a bunch of data, plugging in AI as much as possible, and I think that theme is going to continue, and I think they. Trump, I believe Palantir, that Palantir announcement. Did you see that?
Mm,
Where
of
Trump
course,
is
Peter
giving all
Thiel.
the data. Yep. And
Yeah.
and of course Peter Thiel, the PayPal mafia, they're
So is Peter
basically
Thiel on
yeah,
the side? Is Peter Thiel on the side of Trump or Musk?
uh Musk ultimately, but they're all the Avengers. So in the end they have the same enemies, and it's just like a little tit for
Hmm.
tat type thing where it's, oh, Sam Altman and Musk, ooh, they hate each other because they both created OpenAI together, and now Sam Altman's
Okay.
doing it bad and
So, but
XAI.
would this require a lot of these actors to be sober? Because again, if I look at Elon Musk, the way that he's been acting with the ketamine
Hmm.
and this general sense of cringe, like he's not a good poster. Like he posts a lot of cringe. Again, that does not
Yep.
strike me as somebody who's like some brilliant schemer behind the scenes and all that, right? Like it
Yeah.
strikes me more as like a puppet, if anything. But I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. No, that's accurate. That's it. That's exactly what he is. Some of them are better than the other ones. Um, like Macron, for instance, can barely hold it together. His wife's, slapping him in the face on
No,
camera and
no, no.
shit.
That's
Like,
French. That's okay. That's a French thing, dude. Don't even worry about that. That's fine.
it
Okay.
does seem to be more in line with their culture, yeah.
Yeah, you
But
gotta
yeah,
take a
no, he's
vacation to
he's
France, and
mhm.
you'll like it. It's an interesting place.
He's a sloppy puppet. Elon is, and that's another thing is his seemingly his role was picked out from day one, another comparison. I think it might have been one of the first shows we did together was talking about Elon and the Mars project. I believe that was
Mm-hmm.
on your show where I was
Yeah.
talking to a guy and he's like, I brought up the Mars project, a book written by Wernher von Braun, the chief architect of the Saturn V rocket that took Apollo 11 to the moon. Um, and anyways, he wrote a book in 1948 called The Mars Project about a human colony on Mars. And in the portion where he describes the how Mars is governed, he essentially describes a technocracy that's ruled over or led by the title given to the leader of the Mars colony, human Mars colony, is Elon.
Mm-hmm.
And it just so happens that the guy who is the only person in the world who seemingly thinks a Mars colony is a possible thing and is working towards it happens to be named Elon. And recently, I found an interview with Elon's dad
Mm-hmm.
where he addresses this, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we did see that name. Yeah, I liked it, so that's why I picked it." It's like, okay, that doesn't make it better. That doesn't make it better that somehow you saw it, you admit to seeing it and picking it, and then your son just happens to be the only human ever to exist that has a chance of going to Mars and leading the Mars colony and talks about a Martian technocracy, like tweets about it.
It's
But
it's
yeah,
it's
that,
very
that guy who was
strange.
talking to, the guy who was talking to, I described that, and he goes, "Oh yeah, well, you think just because some science fiction writer wrote a book like that?" And I'm like, Wernher von Braun? You describe Wernher von Braun as a science fiction writer? He's like, "Well, didn't he write science fiction?" He's like, "Yeah, well, that's like calling Hitler a painter. He's just a famous painter. That's like the only thing he did." Which is
Wow, yeah.
accurate because it's a good comparison because Wernher von Braun, of course, was also a Nazi SS, you know, rank and file member.
Absolutely. But do you assume that this is something that people plan out, or is this something potentially that just in the general schema of our existence being a dream? Because that's the other way to look at a lot of this stuff. If we're talking, for example, about Caesar, I'm not sure there was like a smoke filled room where people were planning on, okay, now you're going to have this betrayal and, Brutus is going to betray Caesar and they're going to stab him and all of that stuff. Yet he is fulfilling the archetype that you were talking about as well. With Osiris is a similar thing, and I believe Abraham Lincoln was that also a part of it too, right? So
Yeah,
these
killing of the
things,
king
they
ritual.
yeah, killing of the king ritual. So could you talk a little bit about that? And do you see that again as something that's planned or something that just is a part of our existence as this dreamlike existence where these archetypes just end up
Hmm.
naturally playing themselves out?
Yeah, it's like it's a perfect order versus chaos thing, and which of course is a Masonic axiom where they say order out of chaos, um, and and yeah, that's essentially it. It's almost like I'm trying to think of like a really crazy example that shows like just like how random things can be at some point that are inexplicable, but but yeah, it's like reality is equal parts order and chaos. Um, so all these archetypes, like we were describing, the killing of the king ritual, on some level, you could see that killing of the king ritual because it all originates. Our earliest version of that is the story of Osiris, the ancient Egyptian mythology. Osiris being the patriarch god who is killed by his brother Set, chopped up into 14 pieces. They could only find 13 pieces. A fish ate his dick. Then his wife Isis creates him a gold phallus, impregnates herself with it. They have Horus, which is kind of his son, but kind of a divine insemination or conception is a better word. A la Anakin Skywalker in Star Wars, Jesus Christ, of course. Um, and so on some level, you could see that story as being a um, astrotheology type concept where it would describe the sun dying in December at
Yeah.
its lowest point or whatever, and then being reborn and starting to get bigger in the sky afterwards. And of course, this like the spring equinox and stuff like that, the beginning of the year, because the sun is now growing in the sky and it's getting warmer from that point. Um, so these things are like not only tied into the subconscious of humanity through these stories, but into the reality of life on Earth itself. So there's some of these coincidences are, just that. It just so happens that that's how the universe works and things line up and you get these repeating patterns. And then at some degree, there's people who know about those patterns and then see the things happening. They know the prophecy. You can kind of see this in the Star Wars movies. I just rewatched the sequels on a rainy day a couple days ago. But people know of the prophecy. They didn't purposely turn Anakin into Darth Vader. They didn't want that to happen. But it just so happens that that's what happens. He dies and has a technocratic resurrection, transhumanist resurrection, which is like another apt Elon archetype, because from what I see is Trump is the last president. Elon, of course, represents a new type of leadership, and that's ultimately what this civil war is about. And once Trump and he's out of office or whatever, he goes away, then, like I said, the next leader is going to be like basically picked by Elon because he's the richest man on earth.
The
Um,
kingmaker.
yeah, and so he's eventually the end of the Marvel movies, Avengers Endgame. Iron Man sacrifices himself to stop Thanos, and then basically the only times you see him in the comics, he's basically resurrected as an AI. You see like an AI digital representation of him in the movie universe. In the comics, he is actually like digitally resurrected in a way. Um, which Tony Stark's Iron Man's AI itself, Jarvis, in the movies, is a resurrection of his butler, Jarvis. So he made
Mm.
an AI to resurrect his butler. But in the future, when Elon does eventually die, I do see him, being neural linked and basically continuing on as an AI with a
Oh
transhumanist
God, we're never
resurrection,
gonna be rid
just
of the cringe, are we?
just like Vader, where the Republic falls and then he dies, he leads over the
Yeah.
new Empire as a part machine, part human entity. So
But
that's
just
another
imagine,
fictional
how that's
representation.
going to be, because now we're gonna have all the Kekius Maximus, all these epic win posts nonstop, forever and ever. It's just going to be a part of people's uh, psychic architecture. Because
Mm-hmm.
again, if you were in the position of Elon Musk, first of all, it would be far less of this cringe, but you could still empathize if you were to go into the mind of a lot of these people when they're seeing how cooked a lot of these Zoomers are, seeing how much they're spending time in front of these technologies, then you got to make a choice. Okay, like what are we going to do with this? Because I'm not exactly sure. Maybe I'm over exaggerating the negative effects of this, but I don't know if you looked into what exactly is the next generation. I mean, you're a dad, you have kids, and I bet like you're protecting as much as you can from these patterns that kids end up getting into where they
Mm-hmm.
doom scroll and they're just so addicted to these devices. And this is just the beginning. Like the
Mm-hmm.
iPad babies are going to have babies of their own, or at least the ones that are going to have them,
Mm-hmm.
and those are going to be the ones that get the Neuralink in their heads. And
Yeah.
at that point it's like, well, what are we going to do? Because a lot of these people, they're so cooked, they probably will end up electing like an president AOC or somebody like that. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
how are you going to herd these people now who, like, I don't want them to be cattle. I would rather people be more independent and self sufficient and all of that good stuff. But if we're not able to control people's access to these devices, if they're going to go on TikTok and all that, then could we expect a gradual like lowering of just like general competency? Like I even remember reading a report that teachers were complaining how kids can't even read anymore, So
Mm-hmm.
if that's the direction we're headed that direction, but at the same time we also have AI which enables people to learn really quickly, but
Mm-hmm.
that AI may be used by these kids not that not so they'll learn, but so they will be doing things according to how the AI tells them to do things. And
Yeah.
that's not learning, right? Like that's just picking up a certain pattern and, going with it to the
Mm-hmm.
extent that with Neuralink, they'd be able to have every movement that a person does being controlled by this thing. And at that point, you completely give up your willpower. So am I over exaggerating this? Or if you were to be like a globalist elite for a second and step back and look at it, is this pretty much what we're going to be in for?
Yeah, no, it is like I was talking about earlier, there's with technological advancement, there's some foregone conclusions. Like if in the same way that we talk about the future neural linked, iPad babies type thing, if even the way that we grew up, if our grandparents and great grandparents saw the way we grew up, playing video games inside, even though we were outside way more than this current
Mm-hmm.
generation, just to the degree that we are also playing video games and on the computer and whatever, and interacting digitally instead of outside or whatever, they would also think the same thing. Oh my God, what are they doing? They have
Back in my
no
day, I used
no
to.
socialization. They didn't even get drafted,
Mm-hmm.
etc. But yeah, there's some foregone conclusions, and it's just kind of the nature of the game, survival of the fittest, and these um, as much as things seem to change, they really just stay the same. So there's as things get easier, you would think that when at the turn of the century in the post World War II era or whatever, um, people were thinking, oh my God, once I get a dishwasher and an oven and a microwave and a clothes dryer, like what am I going to do all day? I'll have so much free time to do anything I want. And just more things come up. You have to work more. The people who built it in the third world have now taken your jobs and your your benefits, and now you got to work more. You got to be so. Anyways, it all balances out, and then even if you do have a very cushy life and you end up in a very wealthy family that you don't have to necessarily work for anything, you're not even a lot of cases those people aren't even happy, and you can see it from the statistics on happiness in the richest country on earth, the United States. People just find more things to they get anxiety, and they get, because there's no challenges in their life, they look for something and they find it. um, and there is also a chemical warfare component of that, of course,
Mm-hmm.
the poisoning of the food and medication and big pharma and stuff like that. But there's always, you really couldn't, um, you could drop certain people into any area, any time in history. They're going to have a bad time or a good time depending on
Yeah.
their soul to some degree. So yeah, I think it's definitely going to happen, and the Neuralink stuff and extreme iPad baby, it's going to happen. But it really, what are you going to do? You can
Well,
just
what would you do? Like, if you were in charge, if they were to
mhm.
invite you in, how would you handle this? Would you do anything differently?
Mm, I know I have really no interest in it.
Yeah, but
Now
if they
I
were forcing you, it's like, okay, Drew, either we're going to make your life a living hell, or
mhm.
you're going to be our new leader.
Yeah. If okay, so you're saying if I could run civilization and things would happen the way I want them
Yes, yes,
to,
exactly.
I guess geez, what would be the biggest change I would make? Um,
Everybody
yeah,
subscribe.
I really, I have no fucking clue. I don't think there's any way to improve life for the majority of people, no matter what situation you put people. You could put
Yeah.
people in paradise. This is literally the story of in the Matrix. They say
Mm-hmm.
originally in the Matrix they put people in a perfect simulation where they don't have to do anything. They have every pleasure and joy they could possibly want. And their minds reject it and they hate it. And so they had to put them back into the confines of a what we would experience as the 1990s lifestyle or whatever in the movie. Um, so yeah, I mean, I would try to improve the education system a little bit. Maybe inform people about the side effects of pharmaceuticals and like how to get proper nutrition if you're in a bad situation, and the importance of exercise and stuff like that. But I don't know. I don't know if there's really a great way. That's the other thing is when I talk about this stuff, and I've kind of expressed this throughout the show, but I'm not necessarily saying that okay, the people who plotted out this programming to get people to accept technocracy, it's not really in seeing things play out exactly as predicted 2 years ago. I'm not like scared of what's happening. I don't think necessarily that the people in charge are evil. I mean, some of them are evil if you're banging little kids with Epstein or whatever. Um, but it's so much of it is inevitable, and um, I don't, you know, the end game. It's kind of like an inevitability that if you advance with technology, you're eventually going to get to this point of transhumanism, merging with machine, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just like every other generation. We have, as being a part of the generation, you have certain choices. You know, you could either participate in or opt out of, and have a better or worse life, depending on that. You know, um,
Yeah.
so yeah.
No, I could definitely see there being an element of this as a kind of test. Because what is more of a test than having the kind of life where you have so many things at your disposal and you could either choose to completely waste it, or, for example, you can use it to have AI analyze like different books, like some of the greatest books that have ever been written, and like work with you as a partner in a way to figure things out, because that's the other side of the coin here. It's
Hmm.
not just a matter of these things being used to, control our minds or have us do things according to a certain algorithm. We can actually use them now that we have, all of the information from the entire history of the world as we possibly could. Now could
Hmm.
be the time to use it for those who want to figure out, okay, like, what exactly is this, three-dimensional life that I'm in? What is this existence? Could we break free from it? Like, is there some Gnostic path we can, go through? Is there
Hmm.
something that we can do about this? There's never been a time, I think, quite like now, where both things are happening at the same time. Like, people could either decide to focus on that, or they could decide to, merge with machines and, lose their own soul in the process. So
Hmm.
that's the light at the end of the tunnel, as it were. So I don't
Hmm.
know if you have any thoughts on that. Like, do you
Yeah,
see there? Yeah.
yeah, that's ultimately going to be the main decision of our generation, maybe our generation, maybe the one after. From the way the acceleration is going, I think it'll probably be within our time. You're going to have a chance, you're going to have a choice between, you're either going to fear death so much that you're like, oh, why not? I'll just plug my consciousness into the AI, and eventually they'll figure out cloning bodies, and I can just get plugged back in or whatever. And there's literally a show. I think it might be another HBO show. I forget what it's called, but like,
Like
it's on
Black
like its
Mirror.
second or third season. I think it's something like Plugged In or
Mm.
some type of something like that. But the main character dies, and he's plugged into a virtual reality, and they have like in-app purchases. So he's like begging his family members to give
Mm.
him money so that he can have better amenities in the afterlife. And it just shows through that movie. It just shows like how shallow it becomes if death doesn't exist, and you can live in a virtual reality, just like nobody even mourns you. You can't Nobody can move on, and if they do move on, then you have to watch them like your spouse. What's your spouse going to do? Wait around, talk to you online? Like, um so there's going to be, ultimately, if you don't have that, like we were just talking about, a knowledge of the divine, and some concept of the importance of our actual physical life, and not just being like thinking of physical reality and death as evil, instead thinking of it as a natural experience, and to enjoy each part of it, the challenges and the ultimate end. um, if you don't have any knowledge of that, you will 100% pick to plug yourself into virtual reality, merge with machine, and the only way you can avoid it is by having a knowledge of of good and evil in that way, which I think is ultimately going to be the test. And yeah, that's, I guess, it's like I said, foregone conclusion. Some people are going to pick that, at the end of the road, and some people will get to experience, life and reality, for better or worse.
And in that sense, these controllers of the world, so called, these puppet masters, they seem to be more like in the Torah, they described Satan as being the adversary, as
Mhm.
being this force that's supposed to bind you, that's supposed to challenge you in order for you to eventually overcome it and surpass this kind of pressure. And another Jewish concept which I find interesting is tikkun olam, the repairing of the world. So in this sense, they don't see they don't see the world as being a material world. This is just as much of a spiritual world as, like heaven or whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
And I find that whenever there is like whenever I meditate more, I find this experience of almost seeing this whole world as being so dreamlike, but understanding how well put together it is, how tight it is. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
this, in order to probably lift up a little pebble in this world, like if you do believe that there's like psychokinetic powers or whatever, in order to do that, my hunch is it would be the equivalent of building some intricate sky heavenly castle inside of the astral realm. Like if we're comparing how
Mhm.
tightly woven together this place is as opposed to some other places that are a lot more, free flowing and dreamlike. But that does
Mhm.
not mean that there wouldn't be a like Jason Giorgiani talks about a spectral revolution in the future where the people who are going to be focused on, not the VR stuff, but they're going to be focused on finding, various techniques of how exactly can you manipulate reality. They
Mhm.
together may be able to figure out a way to make things not as tightly woven because maybe the tight wovenness of our reality depends on the consensus of the governed, so to speak. And once the governed are going to be inside of their virtual reality goon cave pods, then what I bet will happen, this is my prediction, is their world is going to actually be really boring. Like we think, oh my god, I'm gonna be like flying around, with the dragons from Middle Earth or whatever. But no, like
Mhm.
I bet that their world is actually gonna be more like Care Bears. Like this is the other thing I'm noticing, by the way, that a lot of the new generations, they've been so infantilized that they prefer to live in this extended Chris Chan type childhood where there's a lot of pinks and purples and the multiple genders and they're wearing diapers and you know what I mean, like
Mhm.
that may be the reality for a lot of people that are going to be coming up where they just wouldn't want to live their room. Meanwhile, in the wild outside world, who knows what the hell can happen once
Mhm.
people start figuring out that this world may be more malleable. I don't know. Any thoughts on this
Mhm.
malleability? Am I talking out of my ass here, or is
No,
there
no,
something there?
no. I think you're totally right, and it kind of goes to that order and chaos thing, and like, how much of this is planned, how many of these coincidences are, a human exertion, a force of will that create it, and how much is just, something we can't describe, mass consciousness affecting things that it shouldn't, that isn't logically should be affected, something beyond just the physical actions of the people that are influenced. And yeah, I think that's at the core of the predictive programming. There's the simple propaganda, concepts where it's okay if we present them with this situation in the movies a million times. Like if the CDC says, for instance, funds the creation of a movie called Contagion in
Mm-hmm.
2011 and prepares people for a pandemic that needs a vaccine and a vaccine card, and there's lockdowns. Um, that'll prepare them for when we give them that situation in real life, and they'll act predictively because we programmed them. There's that aspect, but then there's stuff that Alan Moore talks about, who worked for Marvel UK and then originally went off, I believe, on his own to make Watchmen, and V for Vendetta, two other like extreme predictive programming things, which I have some threads on it if people want to check it out. But it's crazy how those things have played out in such a crazy degree. But he's a he's a public occultist. He's a student of the Crowley occult concepts. Long wizarding tradition in the UK, going back to the Druids. Um, but who of course made their wands out of Hollywood. But that magic, what he talks about is he says all art is magic because it affects the mass subconscious of humanity. it interacts with this chaos aspect that only, that we're tapped into through that, divine spark that we've kind of been talking about. Because humans aren't just flesh and blood and, trapped in a quantum cube type physical reality that has no things that we can't explain, because we do have that little spark, that mask subconscious. If we go and all agree on these same ideas and concepts, then we can. It affects things. It affects things. If you get everybody thinking about the same thing, um, then it changes things and puts things in motion that nobody could possibly plan out, even if they wanted to. So there's equal parts, order and chaos. Again, order out of chaos. You create So yeah, I agree. I think there are things that are possible with the human body and consciousness that, when some people will, and that's essentially what that transhumanism thing is. When you're merging with machine, you're agreeing to locking in your consciousness into just a purely quantum realm that there is no surprise. It's zeros and ones.
Yeah.
There's there's bounds.
It doesn't seem like a good deal though, because if you're giving your own willpower over to the machine, you're not exercising your own willpower. And it seems like if we're correct about the way that a lot of these things work, then wouldn't willpower be the most important quality of all?
Yeah, yeah. I think it definitely is free will. Obviously, Genesis type stuff.
So then what's with all
Fighting of
these
the tree.
people, these globalists that want to merge with machines? It seems like somebody should have a talk with them and say like, hey guys, you're going to be giving over your willpower to this thing, and in the long run, it's not going to be beneficial for you. If all of
Mm.
life, like that's the other weird thing about this, like what I don't understand. If all these people have been trained in these mystery schools, then surely they understand how important one's will is.
Hmm.
Wouldn't they just do like David Lynch? Wouldn't they just like spend their
Well,
time
yeah,
meditating? Like,
it's not for them. It's not. Some of the lower puppets, like I think Bill Gates might be stupid enough to plug himself in or something like that. But they're they're basically making it as hard as possible to have huge families, have a bunch of kids or whatever, and they're telling you, oh, depopulation, depopulation, or overpopulation with Bill Gates. You notice how he hasn't said that at all since
mm-hmm.
the pandemic. He used to do TED Talks talking about we need to get the global population down. They have not said anything
Yeah.
about that since the
But
pandemic.
it's funny though, Musk always does the opposite, right? He talks
Exactly.
about how we need to have more children. What do you think is going on there?
So yeah, that's on one level, that's the Iron Man versus Thanos thing, where Thanos wants to cut the population in half, Bill Gates, and Musk is Iron Man, obviously directly opposing him and saying have as many kids as possible. Um, but yeah, Gates himself has, I don't know how many kids, two or three, I think. So he's like, yeah, everybody else don't have kids, but because I'm rich, I get to have a bunch of kids. Um, and I think it's kind of the same thing with the transhumanism and plugging yourself in. They want everybody else to plug in and sterilize themselves. That way they can have the Earth. Or they want you to think, oh, I'm going to be an astronaut. I'm going to go to Mars. Yeah, blast off to Mars. I got the best planet. I don't even have to terraform this one. Get out of here. I want
It
this
still
all to
just
myself.
seems. I understand what you're saying, Drew, but it still seems like all they really have to do is not do anything, because people are already not having kids, and I don't think it's because they were like listening to Bill Gates, like, oh, this guy has a point, I'm not gonna have kids. It's just, again, like with
Well,
Idiocracy,
come
people
on
have
now. Come on
careers.
now, Lev. You know these liberals are fucking. They are just like, it is beyond programming. Some of these people are just like, they will literally say that. And to your point, it's really deep down they probably would want to have kids, but they know
Hmm.
the economic reality and the way that the world is set up at this point. It's probably not going to be good for them from their
Yeah.
perception. In reality, there's plenty of people who have a ton of kids because they're on welfare, and it incentivizes you to have a ton of kids. So if you just want to go on welfare, you could have 20 kids, no problem,
Oh,
and a lot of
absolutely.
people are.
But
Um,
again, if we just
yeah.
take this as it is, without any other behind the scenes stuff going on there. Imagine you're a woman who wants to have a career and, believes that this is the greatest goal in life, be a girl boss, and
Yeah, I mean,
you
that was literally a propaganda campaign they invested tons and tons of money in. There was actually Edward Bernays, the guy who came up with, who
mm,
wrote the book Propaganda in 1928. One of his first, besides when he helped the CIA overthrow the democratically elected government of Guatemala, he also, his side project was helping promote using feminism, using the movement of feminism to promote women smoking cigarettes by
mm.
labeling them freedom torches. And then there's another interview. There's a great interview that I think was in one of Alex Jones' documentaries, but there was, I believe, he was a Texas like state representative or something who was friends with one of the Rockefeller, side kids. And he said he describes having a conversation with one of the Rockefellers where he's like, the guy goes, "Hey, what do you think women's lib was about?" And he's like, "Oh, women having a right to vote and having a career and more rights, whatever." And he goes, "No, we promoted that to get we want the kids, we want to make sure that we get the kids all day long, and we get to influence them, and we get to get some more tax revenue out of the parents, but we want to fully, we want the kids to think of the government as their parents, to have they're
Huh.
in control of the government all day, as opposed to having a mother in the household." So there's, feminism itself was some point a propaganda
Yeah.
campaign and
The
a
Ford Foundation. You had what's her
purposeful
name
movement. But
working?
then again,
Yeah.
did I
Oh,
mute you or something?
no,
But
no.
anyways,
I
yeah,
was just saying
like
the
your
the
to your
the
point
Ford
again,
Foundation.
it probably, it would always trend
Yeah.
that way anyways, but they definitely, pushed in a direction.
You're aware of the Ford Foundation with what's that actress? Try to remember her name right
I
now.
can't hear you. I don't know if I
Oh,
pressed something or
yeah, you must have
if
pressed something because I see my volume here
can you hear
inside of the
me?
spaces. It's good. I can hear you. I can hear
Yeah,
you.
I can't
Very
hear
good.
you.
So Drew, while Drew is figuring out
Let's
why he
see. Did
can't
I do
hear me,
something?
everybody smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, click the bell. The bell is very important. And by the way, for all the people who are watching this inside of the X spaces, you see the jumbotron where it says "Go here, like and subscribe" and
Okay,
the
yeah,
YouTube link.
I think your
Do
mic
that.
might be disconnected.
Click
I can't
there.
hear you.
Click there. I'm pretty sure my mic is not hello, hello, hello. Yeah, I hear myself pretty well. I think everything is all right with my mic. I don't know why it's not working on your end. Got yeah, guys, you can hear me in the chat. So I'm going to write over here to Drew and tell Drew they hear me on YouTube. There we go. So Drew, look at the chat over here that I wrote down. So again, I would be freaking out if there was something wrong with
Oh, okay.
mine,
So the
but
people can hear us both, huh?
the people could
But
hear
I
me.
can't.
Everything is good.
Let's
Yes.
see
So while Drew is
what's going
figuring this
on
out,
here.
once again, if you want to support the show and if you have any questions you want to ask me and Drew, need those super chats. In fact, we have a super chat over here that I'm gonna read later on, $4.99 from Drunk, the short-legged Mac Daddy Achino. I am
Oh,
going to read your super chat. No worries about that. Drew's figuring everything out.
Oh
And
boy.
once again, to all the people who
I can
are
hear both
inside
of
of
you, so it's
this,
true. Okay.
very interesting. Now I'm hearing a different kind of microphone sound coming from Drutang. Like an even clearer microphone sound. So I don't know what's going on there. Are there like
oh
different
boy.
microphones that you're using? I don't know. But anyway, guys, once again, if you want to support the show, patreon.com/break the rules. Become a patron today. And if you become a $20 patron and you happen to be around the New York City area and you want to see how the sausage is made, how the fudge is packed, then if you become a patron, you're going to be in the audience watching the various BTR shows. Most recently, like these past 2 weeks, I had Styx Hexenhammer 666 on. I also had Uber Boyo and the great and powerful Gnostic Informant. Both of them were there, and that was a wonderful event. So was the Styx one, and you guys could be there in the audience talking with us in the Q&A, live Q&A in person. And then we're going to go up to the rooftop. Then we're going to go have a nice after party at a Japanese izakaya, one of my favorite places there, or some other place. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Ooh, what you got?
And also, be sure to tell the show what kind of people you want on this show. So for the people who are over here in the comments section, if there are some people who I have not had on BTR yet and you really, really want me to have them on, let me know. And also, let me know what you guys think of this new setup where it's me and one person rather than me and like 2 people or 3 people. Because this is slightly different from the usual format of BTR. But I kind of like this. Like, I like the fact that I'm able to have like this back and forth with Drew over here, and everything is working out. But except for the audio right now on his end. Wait, Drew, are you able to hear me
cozy
now?
conversation.
Yes. Is it working? Can you hear me? No? No? Yes?
Yeah. Well, I pulled up the YouTube. I pulled up the YouTube live stream. I don't know why I'm not getting audio
Oh man. Okay, I see. So it's a little bit
from the StreamYard itself, but yeah.
here's my
Yeah,
recommendation
you
though.
wanna just get some
Yes,
final remarks, ask the final
sure.
question. I got juniors running around. I gotta feed them
Sure,
dinner
sure,
in a
sure,
sec.
sure, sure.
But
No problem. No problem at all. Although, if you want to, while I'm saying it, go into settings, just in case, and see if it works. If you go into speaker, see if you have the right speaker connected inside of the StreamYard settings. But regardless, I am going to do the super chat over here, which we have from Dunk the short-legged Mac Daddy Chino. Oh, you know what that's a reference for? I just figured it out. There was this movie called Jack and Jill where you had Al Pacino who did a cameo, and he changed his name in this fake commercial to Dunkachino, and he was promoting Dunkin' Donuts. And it's an amazing scene. After this, go to YouTube, watch it. You're not going to regret it. It's wonderful. And that's with Adam Sandler as well. So anyway, here's what he says. Drew, would you say Vietnamese astrology is less problematic than Vedic or Western astrology from a Christian worldview? Would love to see you at G33 soon. There we go. So I think now he's going to wait a little bit because there we go.
yeah. So I guess to answer the question, yeah, I mean Vietnamese astrology is what GG33 goes with, which is, I really haven't looked into it too much. The only difference I really know is that, of course, in Chinese astrology you have the year of the cat in Vietnamese astrology is the year of the rabbit in Chinese astrology. That's literally the only difference I know about. In terms of the Christian worldview, yeah, Christianity definitely doesn't, in general, the established, Christianity stuff doesn't mold well with occult practices, like astrology and numerology and stuff like that, which I understand, the viewpoint. In my personal viewpoint, stuff like astrology and numerology, the reason I got into numerology was, when I was when I was 11 years old, very devout Catholic, altar server, I was looking for signs from God and kind of intuitively came up with this numerology system, uh, and and basically went off that, and that's why when I found GG33, and I never told anybody about that because that's a total like crazy schizophrenic, childhood, whoopity-doo crazy shit. So I never told anybody. But then when I found GG33, which the founder, Gary Grinberg, happens to have the same birthday as me, I was like, oh shit, apparently it has some value and validity, or at least there's a bunch of other crazy people like me. So I've never seen it as in opposition to God or Christianity, because the whole reason I got into it was based off of, my own Christian faith. So, yeah, I don't know about, if there's any, less problematic from a Christian viewpoint between the astrology versions, but hey, boo boo.
There we go. There's Junior. Everybody smash the like button for Junior. And I just want to say, I don't know if you're still hearing me in the Johnny come lately mode, but I just want to say that seeing you with the family and the beach and all of that, you are a great inspiration, I think, to myself and a lot of the people who are watching this. You're living life, brother, and I really, really appreciate what you do. I look forward to having a lot more of these conversations. And how can people help you out as far as where they follow you? Are there any things that you are selling that people should buy? Let us know.
Yeah, so just follow me on Twitter. I'm going to, I've been dropping threads. I haven't dropped one in a while. Just with the crypto bull market, I've been kind of basically I become a cryptocurrency trader every 4 years when the market picks up, and then the other in between years I'm just purely conspiracy theorist. Um, but yeah, I'm going to drop my second book within the next year here. So keep an eye out for that. But yeah, just follow me on Twitter, and I'll be dropping some more content soon. And yeah, that's the best way to support me. And thanks again, Lev. This has been amazing. Like you were saying about me, I appreciate what you do. It's awesome to just be able to come on the show, be invited, and being able to connect with your community and the various people we've had on to talk to. So thank you so much for inviting me on. And yeah, I think I got to sign off here with Junior, but thanks a lot. And yeah, I'll talk to you later.
All right, Drew, thank you so much. It was a great pleasure. Guys, if you enjoyed the show, smash that subscribe button, smash that like button, click the bell, patreon.com/break the rules. I'm going to post the link one last time for all of you. Here it is. Here's the link, patreon.com/break the rules. Become a patron today and look out for the show that's going to be uploaded hopefully, if not tomorrow, then after tomorrow with Uber Boyo and Gnostic Informant. And right after that, I'm going to be editing the show with Styx. Again, both of them are in New York City. If you want to become a $20 patron and you're in the New York City area, you can join the show. You can join the shows live when it happens and then go to after party. Drew, I know you hate New York like the plague, but hopefully in the future we're going to get you down here. So guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you later. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.